Good morning, happy Monday, how are you? Well, today I'd like to talk to you about self-esteem. Now, is self-esteem real or is it a self-prophecy? Because we're always told, aren't we, that self-esteem is got to be built up, like resilience. You know, it's something that we've got to strengthen and build and work on. Or should we? I mean, is it from source? I don't think so. I don't think it even exists. Now, before you switch off thinking I've totally lost the plot, let's just talk about it for a minute. You see, self-esteem was only really, the term was coined by William James, you know, the philosopher and psychologist, who split us into kind of three different parts. So there was the material self, the social self, and the spiritual self. So therefore we started to have these selves and we started to get self-esteem. And then in the 60s it became a really big thing because there were self-esteem classes and there were self-esteem courses, and people started to talk about whether they had self-esteem and whether their self-esteem was high or low. And then it became a bit of a mantra, didn't it? It was like, oh well, I can't really do that because I've got low self-esteem. I can't go there because I've got low self-esteem. You'll have to excuse me, I've gone quite dark, which I think is quite nice. It's because the sun's shining and I'm talking to you from my office today, so there's a beautiful view, but it is quite bright. So people started talking about themselves as having self-esteem, and it became a thing. But if you think about self-esteem, I mean, what is it? It's a value, isn't it? It's a judgment. It's got to be a self-judgment. It's a self-evaluating idea of yourself, a judgment, an idea. Because what measure are you measuring yourself against to have low self-esteem? Do you think that you're not clever as other people, or you're not as good looking as other people, or maybe you think that you're lacking? Because I think self-esteem, low self-esteem, really does focus on the lack, don't you? And also self-esteem isn't fixed, is it? Because sometimes people have quite high self-esteem in one area and then very low self-esteem in another. Well, how? Because if it was something that was built into you, it would be the same all the time, wouldn't it? You know, anything that's built into you, you know, my breathing can go faster or slower, but it's always breathing. So therefore you must always have esteem, and it's up to you whether it's high or low. Let's look at a couple of examples, because if you went to an interview, there are 10 people going to an interview, and even with my math, which isn't very good, if there are 10 people going for an interview, 9 of them are not going to get the job. Well, some of those 9 might think, oh well, it's because my skills weren't quite a good fit for the job. Some people might think, oh well, the person that got the job had more experience in this area. You know, everyone will have their rationale, and quite rightly, to why they didn't get the job. But if you've got low self-esteem, if you think you suffer with low self-esteem, then that's what you're going to pin it on probably. Oh well, I didn't get the job because I have low self-esteem. So let's just think about that. If you believe you have low self-esteem, you'd probably had to drag yourself to the interview anyway. So you're already not feeling great, and then you're going to the interview and you're probably acting from that place of low self-esteem. Now, you can blame the low self-esteem on the reason you didn't get the job. You can say, that's why people didn't like me, because I've got low self-esteem. But actually, if you are coming from that place of low self-esteem, surely you're going to be giving off signals that maybe you don't even want the job. Because I don't believe self-esteem exists. I think that when you believe you have low self-esteem, you get into that kind of thinking, yeah? You start to see problems whether they exist or not, because it's got to be down to you. Because self, you, esteem, the way you're thinking. If you hold somebody in high esteem, that means that you think they're really good at what they do, or you like them for whatever reason. So esteem has got to come from your thinking about the thing or the person, hasn't it? So therefore, self-esteem is totally coming from you and the way that you're thinking. If you have low self-esteem, that often goes with social anxiety, doesn't it? And if you think about social anxiety, you're in your head about something. Now, I don't think social anxiety exists either, but before you get really cross with me, saying, maybe I've never experienced it, and trust me, I went through decades experiencing it. But when I realised that my social anxiety was coming from the way I thought other people were going to think of me, and if you're suffering with low self-esteem, you're not going to be thinking that the people are going to be thinking wonderful things about you. You're likely to believe in your mind that people are going to start judging you because that's what you're doing. You're judging you and you think they will too. So let's think about going to a party. You get this party invitation and then you start to feel anxious. You start to feel socially anxious because you're getting into your head about what the party will be like, what everyone's going to be talking about. Will you be able to keep up with the conversation? What will people think of you? What will you wear? Are you going to look fat? Or whatever would go through your mind. You get into a whole thought storm about thinking about the party and you're not even there yet. Yeah. So can you see that the social anxiety is self-created, just like low self-esteem? If you think about somebody who appears to be quite confident, and you look at somebody who's quite confident and they're at the party, what do you think the difference is between somebody who looks like they might have high self-esteem, or who probably are not thinking about self-esteem at all? But what do you think the difference between someone that's suffering from social anxiety and somebody who looks incredibly confident at a party is? It's got to be the one thing, hasn't it? It's got to be down to thought. When you feel socially anxious, you are concentrating on what you think everybody's thinking. The focus is entirely on you. When you go somewhere and you're not thinking about it at all, you're having no thoughts about it, where is your focus? On the other people. You want to meet them, you want to talk to them, you want to engage with them. You're not trying to do their thinking for them, because they can do that for themselves. So you're just engaging with the people, you're enjoying yourself, therefore you're not feeling anxious because you're not thinking about you. You're not thinking about what people are thinking about you. And that's the same as low self-esteem. If you're sitting at home feeling that you're suffering with low self-esteem, what are you thinking about? You must be thinking about the things that you feel you lack. Your focus must be on what you think you don't have, that you're not clever enough, that you're not intelligent enough, same thing I guess, that you're not pretty enough, you're not fat enough, you're not thin enough, you're not anything enough. You're just not enough. But is that true? No. You're just perfect. You're always enough. Nobody can take that away from you. You have to be enough because you're perfect. You're built the same as everybody else. So I'd like you to just experiment with something this week. Experiment with if you start to feel feelings of low self-esteem, just ask yourself, okay, what am I thinking? Now, you may have fallen into familiar patterns of thinking about yourself. So you're not aware of what you're thinking. It's just a constant hum. It's just there all the time. So I'd like you, when you have that feeling, just to stop. Okay, what am I thinking? Just consider it. Don't go deep into it. Don't think, where did this start? Just notice that you're thinking. Notice that you're in that constant repetitive cycle. It's familiar. And then I'd like you to notice that discomfort is just a passing thought. It just goes through you. Because when you allow the ebb and flow, the flux of thought to go through you, when you're not stuck on one particular thought about who you are and what you are likely to have new fresh thought, aren't you? And the new fresh thought can be about something else that's not necessarily related to you and what you think you lack. And this is why, you see, I say self-esteem is a self-prophecy. Because the more you think about what you don't have or what you lack or how everybody else is better than you, have a better car, have a better partner, have a better life, have more money, whatever whatever form it shows up for you, when you start to, and when you start thinking like this, of course it's going to be a self-prophecy, because how are you going to show up in the world? You're going to show up from that stinking thinking, aren't you? So just ask yourself, who are you underneath all of that thinking? Yes, your happiness, resilience, all the things that truly are built in at source. Confidence, that's built in at source. That has nothing to do with self-esteem. That has nothing to do with an invented construct about how we feel and how we think. So you are all the things that are built in at source, just like everyone else. So have a wonderful week. And if you want to think about self-esteem as something real, and I really wouldn't, but if you do go down that road, give yourself high self-esteem. It's all coming from you. It's your choice about how you think about yourself, how you judge yourself. So make it the best. Okay. Have a wonderful week, and I shall see you next Monday. Okay, bye-bye.